Aston, it feels like I've been waiting for this for literally months, like since Kyle first told me that you guys were doing this website revamp. And the second I saw it, I was so excited because I think I don't know if I've counted, but I'm going to officially say that you win for the most amount of interactive demos on one landing page. So just can't wait to dive into how you did that. Like that was it feels like such a monstrous defeat to get 12 interactive demos across the entire landing page.
Sure. Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to this too. And, in the build up when we were discussing this before the website went live, I told you, I guess kind of vainly, but I was like, I think this is the best implementation that's been done. I can't, there's been all this work put into it. So I'm excited to talk about it. Whether it's the best or not, that's open to interpretation, but I stand by it.
I was going to say, I'm seeing some people on the call, and I know we have some pretty good use cases, but I think if
Sure.
nothing else, the most demos I've seen on a website.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll take that then.
Well, I guess just to dive into it, I would love to start at the very beginning, Aston. I know that you previously had an interactive demo on your old website. Just curious, like, how did your company go about first implementing interactive demos and then the transition from the old website to the new one?
Sure. So we've had interactive demos pretty early on, actually. Our sales leader, Ben Solari, was friendly with someone in the founder, like a founder in the space, so we were aware of it. So he kind of drove that, and that was, we just had to, initially when the product was a bit more stripped back like that, it was our main CTA, and we got a huge amount of inbound pipe from that. Just that having that CTA up top, it was a great. It was kind of validated, just from off the back of that, everyone was kind of on board with interactive kind of product tours. When I came in, it was when I joined the company, I'd had experience before on product tour projects, fairly large ones, where I've worked with like UX people to make them really spick and span. And when I came in, it was kind of, that was my goal, was to take that experience and kind of tidy it up. And that was how our product tour was set up for pretty much the longest time. We'd occasionally spin up new ones for more tactical use cases. But when we got around to the website redesign discussion, obviously Kyle Lacey, our CMO, had come in. He's obviously very close to Novatic, and he saw the value, of course, especially with our inbound numbers. And the discussion sort of happened between myself and my boss at Evan Klein, who was kind of in charge of making was laying out the pages, the content, the framework of how the pages were going to be set. And he listened to me, something I really appreciated. He listened to my kind of philosophy about just websites and saying, you need to, I'm a firm believer in having all different kinds of content when people want to learn about your product, whether it's a video, blog, something interactive like a product tour. People learn in different ways. And that's kind of the vision that I pitched him, that he bought into. And the product tours were the kind of the crown jewel, if it were, because they're interactive and you can use them to pitch different pieces of content. They're so versatile, and that was kind of the genesis of the idea around really embedding the tours across the breadth of our website.
Yeah, as I mentioned, like I think it was 15 demos across 12 different pages.
Sure.
I'd love to dive into how did you just first start organizing that and
Sure.
prioritizing, okay, these are the use cases, features, solutions that we're going to show with interactive demos.
Sure. Well, I think that the natural kind of thing that happens with interactive demos, if you're just starting with them, is that you have your product, you have your core demo, and then, maybe you get a new feature, so you bolt that on. You get another new feature, you bolt that on, and it's getting a bit long suddenly, and then maybe you spin up another one, but it can be kind of a bit ramshackle, I think, just because that's the nature of how products grow, especially when you're in the scale-up world, as we are, or startup scale-up world. And what really was the genesis of that was we, taking a step away from product tours, we had this big initiative within the company to develop a value framework, which was kind of a list of different use cases, basically, of what our platform Jellyfish can do. Before that, you could ask people what Jellyfish does. They give you 10 different answers. And we wanted to really codify that. So we developed this framework within the company. And that was a great starting point to say, okay, well, we have this framework that's just launched. We're about to launch our new website. It's going to be a big part of the outlay of the website. Let's tie these tours to this framework, but also break them down by feature. That's the three categories we kind of have. It's feature tours, value framework tours, and then also persona tours. That was kind of the three buckets we had. Because previously our tours were fairly long, like had probably way more average steps than you'd expect. I think the average was 30 when I calculated it, which is a bit too long. So we wanted to really break it down, have much more digestible tours, and spread that, as I said, across those three buckets of features, value framework, and personas.
So it sounds like leadership set those value frameworks when they were deciding on the new website, or is that something, were you part of that decision as far as like, okay, here are the main values or use cases or persona we're targeting, or is that sort of just handed down?
It was kind of handed down. I mean, that was a huge project to define this, and product marketing was very much the leader of that. My boss Evan Klein led that initiative, so I was very familiar with the framework. But it was just kind of a perfect storm of that, basically, of where we were launching a new website. This framework was going to be a big part of it, so that provided a launch pad to really start formulating how we're going to structure the tours in regards to the website.
And when it came to actually building out the demos, and I do want to show them soon, I feel like we've been talking about them a lot. I saw a question in the chat about wanting to see them, but when it came to building them out, did you use a lot of the material provided by product marketing? Like, did they have a lot of write-ups around the value frameworks, or was that more listening to your own calls, writing the copy your own? Just curious, like how you went. Let's just take like one demo going about and planning it.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it. I mean, it was mainly driven by my experience with the product itself. I created scripts for our previous tours, and it was an exercise of kind of amalgam, like bring those all together. I've led the go-to-market for pretty much every major feature launch bar one since I joined Jellyfish. And off the back of that, I have quite a decent understanding of all the different features and kind of the flows through them. So I was, again, I think the perfect person to do this with my product tour experience and also my product experience. So it was more kind of sitting down, saying, these are the tours we want, sometimes the framework, sometimes the features, sometimes to personas, verifying that was appropriate with my boss and Kyle, our CMO. And then the hard work of it, actually creating the tours is fairly easy, I always say, because now it's just an easy tool to use. The hard work really is writing the scripts, putting the CTAs together, putting UTMs in the CTAs. That's the real work of it. And it really is just sitting there and writing it out, and then obviously doing it, like thinking about where you're going to pin things, where you're going to capture things, making sure you're just very organized. It's a real exercise in organization, actually, at least if you want to have a good implementation, I think. And so that's what it was. It was just maybe, I think I was really optimistic with my boss. I was like, I can do that in a couple of weeks. And I think it stretched out a little bit to a month because it was a lot of work.
It's funny, we hear that a lot where people say, no, it's the planning that takes the longest. And we try to say that to new customers. I don't think it sits in until you build it, but it's just like any other asset you create, like a video or a blog post. The actual building part should hopefully be pretty simple, but to make them really stand out and to make them look really good, it's the planning. And one thing I'd love to dive into the planning and show off a little is the CTAs you mentioned, because this was something I've had other people comment on about the Jellyfish website, but you sort of masterfully wove a few different CTAs of the tour. So love to hear a little bit of the thinking there. And then if you don't mind asking, actually show a tour and kind of show what I mean by some different CTAs.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, I've already touched on this briefly in this discussion about how I approach the tours. And I think we've had discussions as well on LinkedIn about my philosophy here. But for me, at least, I think the tours are sort of interactive highway to our entire content library. Someone's going to be more engaged than just browsing your blog. They're really, if they're engaging with a tour, they're actively thinking about what they're doing. And so it's kind of a captive audience you want to leverage. You don't want to, bombard them with a million different CTAs, because that gets annoying. And the main thing is definitely not to annoy your users, because it's all just this experience with your product and brand. But that was my philosophy when approaching this. I said every single one of these tours, I want one written CTA in case they're a reader. I want a video CTA in case they want to prefer to watch a video to learn something. And then I want at the end another CTA to another tour if they're interested in doing another tour. And then also demo request CTAs, which is a massive thing for our sales team as well, and for the growth team. And like embedding a form to And we can talk a little bit about that when I go into it. But that's my philosophy. You have this audience, push them to your different different content. As long as you need to have good content across the board, and however they want to learn about jellyfish, accessing these product tours is a way to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, if you don't mind, would love. I have a few more questions. It might make sense to see it while we're looking at it, but
yeah,
I think one, as you're getting it pulled up, that love to noodle on is like also the placements of the CTAs. It's very easy to just say, I'm going to put a book a demo at the end. But so how did you decide, okay, a blog should go at this point, a demo should go at this point?
Sure. Wait, can I just check? You are seeing my screen right now. I mean, to answer that question around the tour before I dive into the demo, I think it was just more about just spacing them out. Again, it's you don't want to annoy people. That's why you don't want to like bombard them, as I say. And I think it has to be relevant. You can't just say, oh, you're having this experience, here's a video that has no relevance to what you're seeing. It has to be very pointed. I think you think about it, if you're showing off a feature, you show off the simplified version in the tour, and you say, this is how powerful it is. Why don't you watch a video to learn even more about that? And I guess I can show you that in one of the tours. So I'm going to navigate to tour now. This is our website that we're on right here. We have a really long one on this page. This is like our main one. I'll show a shorter one just because interest of time. Lifecycle Explorer. This is one of our features. Oh, just taking a while to load. This is one of our features that lets you we're an engineering management platform. It's like software engineering analytics. Lets you look at the kind of bottlenecks in your software development lifecycle. So if we scroll down, we have the embedded tour here. They're all embedded on the page, kind of like this across the website. So if I click through, I won't read it, but my philosophy is to keep these on Rails as well. I know some people have the philosophy of have the sandbox, let them click where they want to click. I don't believe in that. I think you need to keep the experience tight on Rails. They know exactly where to click if they want to progress. So everything's tied to these kind of like next buttons. So yeah, you just click through, going through, just explaining the actual how it works, going through, of course, again. And then, so this is an example of when a CTA would come up. So we've seen the analytic, but what's interesting about this analytic is, how would you actually interpret this data? So then a bit of an explainer there, but also, if they're interested, watch how to use the Lifecycle Explorer explainer video to get that, what deeper insight, basically. And if I go continue with tour, it's at that point, then the form comes in. So if they're interested, they can learn more, watch the video completely ungated. But if they want to learn more on the tour experience, okay, now they need to give us their email. And this is some great copy you actually provided for us, Natalie. This was a great suggestion. And something I wanted to touch on here as well is that previously, before this website redesign, all our product tours were gated. They were all hidden behind a form fill. And I think it was the right decision to remove the initial form fill from them. You want to get people experiencing the product as much as possible. But at the end of the day, this is a lead capture play for us. We need to get some kind of sort of email. So putting it in here at kind of a appropriate point, I think, again, is just part of the experience and how we derive so much value from implementing these tours. I can keep going, but I don't know if is that enough of an example.
No, that's great. And I have a few questions, but if anyone else has questions in the chat, especially after seeing the jellyfish tour, feel free to just go ahead. I think I'd love to talk a little bit more on the form, because that's, I know, one thing we did talk about as you're implementing it. And I think what we've been seeing is, you are going to get less engagement if you have a form up front. It's kind of just obvious. Like, think about yourself as someone on a website.
Sure.
But I do love this concept, as you said, of, hey, let me show the main value up front, maybe even give you more ungated resources, and then add a form if they want to see more. Curious how your team is then using those leads you get from it, and if they are considered any higher priority or intent, because it's not just a demo or an email at the very beginning of the demo, but later on.
Sure. Yeah, we're kind of using those records. At this stage, we have just asking for the email, just so we can sync up the engagement with the tour. And of course, we're scoring that. We're scoring it pretty high from an intent perspective, and then feeding that into our Salesforce instance, and it's part of the the lead record when the sales reps engage. But we also, we have a lot of at the end of it, everyone, and sometimes through as well, we have like a book a demo button as well, and that's one of our, as I say, highest intent inbound signals, and people do, like, we get a lot of clicks on the book a demo button once they've gone through these things. But for this form, the previous form, it was very intense. It was lots of fields, we were really fleshing that record out. This is just entering an email. I think it's pretty low impact. You just put your email in, and then you're off again to the races. So I think it's not too disruptive.
Yeah, that's always our recommendation, like 1 to 2 fields. I think especially with all the enrichment platforms now, like if you get the email, you can enrich it later, but
Exactly.
it feels a lot less intrusive to put your email than like every piece of information about you.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%.
So you touched on how you are seeing a lot of these leads do ultimately convert to book a demo. Are there any other just like metrics or just results, qualitative or quantitative, you've seen since implementing this new website relaunch with all these demos?
Sure. Yeah, I was looking away because I was pulling across my analytics tab. I won't
Love
give
it.
exact numbers, but some of this is because we did a big website redesign as well. So we've driven more traffic just as a whole. And obviously these are now embedded across our website, but we've seen some really great numbers in the past 3 months. We've had maybe like a 250% increase in engaged visitors who are like interacting with these tours. CTA clicks, a 300% increase. The click-through rate's great as well, which I think is great. It's like 25%. And what I really love as well, actually, the kind of sleeper stat, I think, is time spent per session has gone up a lot, actually. And that means that people are doing the tour, not just the tour, but they're on that page. It's all about that integrated content experience. So the fact that they're on these tours for longer means that they're maybe doing the tour, they're scrolling down, maybe they're looking at the blog, they're looking at the videos that we have embedded on the pages as well. And I think the tour has a big part to play in that as well, and keeping people on the page and then sparking their interest so that they look at the other things as well. Yeah, it's been a great green numbers across the board, triple digits. And yeah, the CTA, as I say, the CTA clicks, I love to see that as well, because I think it's a really validating point for this idea of like embedding. People are doing the tours and seeing our other content. That's what the numbers are telling us, which is great. It's the end goal.
I love how much you focus, like you said, on that time on session, because I have like a SEO background, so I typically think about things, especially a website, from an SEO perspective. But that gets me so excited because think about like from a signal to Google, if people are spending 5-10 minutes on your landing page because it has a demo on it, that's a huge signal of like, hey, this page is valuable, versus just like, oh, they're skimming over it. Like words and images are so easy to skim over, versus the nice thing about having to click through is you kind of have to be engaging with it. It takes a little more time.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
So I'm sure after building all these demos, the last thing you want to hear me ask right now is, how else do you plan to use the Vatic? But once you've gotten a little break, now the demo has been live for a little bit, just curious, what are some other use cases you're thinking about for the future?
Sure. Yeah, I think the next step for us, well, first up, I think what's important to commit to is a regular update cadence. Like before anything, I think your plan for these, they're only as good as how well you maintain them. You're always gonna have new features, have suggestions. So that's like the next thing is we had a huge interface update right as I launched these tours. So I've got to go through all of them and replace like some of the screens as well. So I think that's really important. Like that's the next step, is just keeping that consistency. We committed to a quarterly update cadence for these tours moving forward within the product marketing team here. So that's kind of next steps, but more, I guess, aspirationally, you could say, is to try and leverage product tours in a variety of different ways, not just as this kind of inbound driver on the website, but next step, I think, really is going to be working closely with the business development team here at Jellyfish, understand what they would want from a product tour like this, and definitely make it more personalized. Like my grand vision is to have them record some kind of video to get their face in there, embed that within the tour, make it this really personal, use the personalization capabilities of Navitat, I get stumbling over the name, sorry, and use those capabilities to really make them like a really engaging selling resource that's low calorie but high impact, that you can just send out to all these different personalized send out to all these different accounts, and hopefully gain some traction. Because I'm such a champion of the world of product tours that I think that the BDR team, if they were sending these out, we'd see some big success there. So that's the aspiration moving into Q4.
I love that idea of let me embed a little video before, because we've seen that work pretty well right now with BDRs. Like, let them introduce themselves. But then after that, it's like, okay, like I'm gonna introduce myself, let you know me, know that I'm a trustworthy person. But probably what you're really asking is like, what does this product do? I get emails all the time that is just so much jargon. But I'm like, I don't understand what the product does. Like maybe that sounds cool until I see it. I'm not gonna commit any more resources to it. So that feels like a perfect little as Karina said, snackable content to send in a BDR cadence.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think they'd love it as well. I think the BDRs, the ones that are most successful are the ones who are already leveraging these. So to get something that's even more tailored to them and their needs, I think they're going to be pretty happy. The BDR team has expressed great interest in this. I just need to book the meeting, basically, get the ball rolling.
It's so funny because we hear all the time, like, oh, I don't know if my sales team would be into the idea of interactive demos because it's going to replace booking demos. And then the second the marketing team uses it or gets it, we often hear, oh, my SDR team wants to use it. Like, what are best practices there? So I think as marketers, we're always a little scared, like, oh, no, we don't want to do anything to upset sales, but then often finds like, no, they're interested in their own on these.
Hey, I have a pre-sales background. Okay, I've done plenty of live software demos, and I'll tell you, the first time that I saw one of these product tools that like just scrapes the web browser and creates them, I was like, this is a fantastic idea. I don't have to run live demos anymore, where like a million things can go wrong. I can just create this live demos are always going to have their place, but these are just they're great conversation starters, and they're not going to replace the technical deep dive. I don't think they'll even replace the live demo. It's really just to give them a taste, give them a really engaging, tasty morsel of whatever you're trying to push.
I've been saying appetizer a lot recently, but I like tasty morsel. I'm going to start changing it up.
Yeah, that's an Englishism for you.
I was going to say that I'll make sure when I give that analogy different time zones, maybe different countries, I'll change it up.
Sure. Yeah, it'll hit well in the UK, I'm sure.
Okay, last question from me, and then I do want to leave some time. Audience, any last questions? But you've given a lot of great tips throughout, Aston. Would love to just hear anyone maybe new starting out, someone like who's just been tasked with maybe doing their own website relaunch with interactive demos. What are any tips for Novatic newbies?
Sure. Well, the first one I always give is really think about the user experience. I was so lucky. Like I was left to my own devices at my previous role, and I built out all these big product tours, and then someone from the product team saw it and said, this is too much. Like, we're getting you a UX designer. And I worked with this really sat and went through it, and he taught me a lot about UX. It's a very foundational project in terms of even how I think about everything with it in marketing. And I'd say take that approach with your product tours. Think about what the experience is going to be like. I'd say keep it on rails. We touched on this today. There's two camps in the world of product tours, the sandbox versus the on rails. And I am captain of the on rails team because I really think giving prospects too much flexibility when they don't know your application is opening yourself up for them to be annoyed, get lost. You want to keep the experience tight and consistent, make sure that they can't get lost, basically. And that's the way they have like a good experience with your application. So definitely keep it on rails. And then the final thing, I guess, is just stay organized. Really think about where these tools will have impact, how you can tie them to things, whether it's persona, whether it's feature, whether it's you just want a whole platform one, or you have some kind of use cases as well. Just keep that in mind when you're setting yourself up or when you're starting with these, because if you do the planning early days, it just makes it much easier to treat it as it's almost like a product in itself of the marketing team. And like any product, it's going to be updated, change, you're going to add, remove things. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, the final thing I forgot to say is the interlaced content experience. Like, this is a great resource. You have a captive audience. Use it. Use that audience. If you want to promote something else, if it's a webinar, promote a webinar. If it's a blog, if it's a video, just make sure it's relevant.
Yeah, I think those are amazing tips. I remember when we first talked, you mentioned the UX thing, and that is so much what I see makes a great demo versus a very good one, right? Like, it's clear when someone has been trained and, this tooltip shouldn't cover this part of the UX, or this transition looks nicer than this one. And I think that just takes time and reps of building out demos. Even I know I built some and I'm like, ooh, that I need to like change that up. Or one tip I love I've gotten from a customer before is very modal placements and tooltip placements, so you're not doesn't get too repetitive. So if you can have like a UX product designer, maybe just go through and look at it once with you, I think that's an awesome tip.
Yeah, it's invaluable, I think.
Cool. Well, I know we have a few minutes left. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If not, too, Aston, hope you don't mind me setting you up, but maybe if people have questions, if you don't mind them reaching out, I think, product tours are new. Whenever people can talk to an expert like that, super helpful.
Sure, yeah, I'd be more than happy to speak to. I love talking about this because it was a really big project, and I think of myself as maybe a subject matter expert in product tours, just because I've done it. This is the third time I've done a big project around product tours. So I'm always happy to impart knowledge. I really believe in them. It's like a very firmly held belief in terms of their power as not just a inbound tool, but also like customer education, what have you. The possibilities are endless. So I'm always happy to meet like-minded individuals who want to get started.
Yeah, and Dale, love to hear you agree. I'm not surprisingly in the Nevada camp, we are very much on Rails. I know I've gone to a few websites that do have like the entirely open sandbox, and sometimes I'm like, this is cool, but I just don't get it. Like I think certain products that can work really well, but a lot of times it's at that point it's like maybe just drop them into a free trial because if they want to play around, just fully play around with it.
Sure, that's it, and if it's the first time experiencing it, even if you point them in a direction, you need to tell the value. I think it's all about communicating value and feature value. So I think it's the easiest way to do that is to just keep it consistently a consistent experience.
Yeah, cool. I think it doesn't look like we got any questions, so I think we're wrapping up here. Aston, if people do want to reach out, talk to you a little more, I guess where's the best place to do that?
Sure, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Aston Whiteling,